prospect for Rian that he would also gladly follow him to the ends of the earth. As the apparently soul-serving girdle of the Old White Hart's dining room staggered past under the weight of plates of steaming stew and roast mutton, Rian stopped her and asked her to prepare the bill for their meals. Several minutes later, in a harassed fashion, she dropped a folded piece of paper onto the table before rushing off to attend to someone else. Rian opened it, his flint-grey eyes widening. "Good God, this is extortion. It's almost £5. Kitty glanced at the bill, unsurprised. Everything in Melbourne seemed to be absurdly overpriced at the moment. She collected her reticule and slid the cord over her wrist. "Perhaps you should just settle it. We've sat here long enough, and we've things to do." Rian looked shifty. Well, actually, I can't." The Catapult's crew eyed him with amusement. None of them could pay the bill either, as they'd not seen wages since the schooner put into Port Phillip 3 days ago. But no one was concerned. Their entire cargo of supplies from the California goldfields had been sold this morning, so their pay wouldn't be far away. Kitty's brow creased in a frown. "Why not?" "Because I don't have the money." "But what about the sale this morning?" Rian rearranged his knife and fork. "Well, the fellow couldn't pay for all of it at once, so I've held half of the cargo back until he hands over the rest of the cash." "But you should still have half of the money, shouldn't you?" Yes, I did have it." Rian stopped fiddling with his cutlery and added cheerfully, "Actually, it's quite a long story, but it's probably best if I don't tell it to you here." He tucked the bill under the salt pot and looked purposefully along the table. "So we'll have to do the usual, I suppose. Is everybody ready?" Kitty stared hard at her husband, a bubble of wary suspicion beginning to form in her chest. Nonetheless, she swiveled daintily on the bench so she faced away from the table. "Go!" Rian urged, and all 9 of them leapt up and charged out of the dining room, scattering as they burst out onto the street. Behind them, Kitty heard a bellow of rage, then the heavy footsteps of the publican as he pounded out of the hotel. Perhaps assuming that Kitty would be the easiest to run down, he set off after her, his boots slipping and sliding in the mud of Burke Street. Risking a glance over her shoulder, Kitty caught a glimpse of him, his apron flapping and his face scarlet, apparently determined to risk death by heart attack for a mere £5. Her skirts held high, Kitty raced ahead of him, Amber beside her, giggling with excitement, dodging puddles, people, and vehicles as they swerved across to the other side of the wide road. On and on they ran, past Exhibition, then Russell Streets, then Swanston Street. But before they reached Elizabeth Street, Kitty and Amber ducked into an alleyway, negotiating crates and broken barrels and heaps of ill-smelling rubbish, then shot out the other end like corks from a bottle and sprinted along Little Burke Street and into the shadowed elegance of Victoria Arcade. "Is he still coming?" Kitty panted as she stood, bent at the waist, hands on her hips, chest heaving. Whatever must all of those people in the street have thought? Amber peeked out, then shook her head. "Can't see him, Ma." Kitty rested for a moment longer and took a last deep breath to slow her heart rate. She straightened, stared up at the vaulted roof above the arcade's clerestory windows.